we had a Bible that was in chronological order, and we would read through, and we would get to those points, and we're just like, wait a second, what?
Right.
But then you ask your mom, that like, we haven't talked about sex yet, but we're over here like, so wait, what just happened?
Noah's banging his daughters. What is going on?
His son is cursed for all eternity because he walked in and saw him drunk and covered him
Yes.
up.
It's like Dad built a boat on a whim and then listened to the entire world die screaming outside of it. He deserves a drink.
Exactly.
Ah. Oh man.
Anyway, so this is all on your flannel graph, right? Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Growing Up Christian. I'm Sam.
I'm Casey.
I'm Jeremiah.
And we want to start this off with reminding all of you to get your abortions while you still can. There is not much time left, everybody. And, get them while you still can, maybe a couple, say, I don't know, maybe you've been saving up and you just want to go get it done last minute. But that's last minute's really creeping up. So maybe you just go take care of that right now. What do you guys think?
I mean, if you wait too long, you might be too late. So
Yeah. You can't wait till the last minute anymore on these things. It's real travesty.
Dude, this I was hoping maybe with Biden winning the election and stuff, I was hoping that we might have like this brief reprieve from talking about abortion.
Yeah, you'll never get that reprieve, especially in the world we come from. That's never going anywhere.
Oh
well,
my
you know what's
God.
going to be great is even if not great's not a great word, but if this does happen, we still won't hear the end of it. They're going to be talking. Then it's just going to be this like uproarious. How do we keep this way? Because of course,
it's going to be the
immediately
same
people are gonna
single.
rally.
Yeah, it's going to be the same single issue voters all over again, just
Yeah.
for either preserving or changing it back.
Yeah, and now it's going to be like we need to keep praying that this doesn't change. Right now, it's we got to pray. We got to pray that this works, that it's overturned, and now it's gonna. And then if it happens, it's going to be like we need to pray. And then if it does get overturned, it's going to be confirmation that God has heard their prayers and that everything's great. And then if it gets overturned again and goes back the other way, then it's going to be the enemy's oppression, and it's not that God didn't hear their prayer. It's just like that constant cycle of like, I guess confirmation bias, but it's played out, and I'd like to not see it get played out. Not that I have like I don't know, I don't really have a horse in this race personally, so people might not care that the three of us are talking about this issue. But
I don't know. The whole thing's so weird. Like, it's weird how the information came out. Like, usually this whole firestorm pops up because somebody proposes some sort of ridiculous new legislation, which they are doing. Mississippi. Sure. Ridiculous.
We see you.
But I don't know. The whole thing just feels so weird because, with the economy and inflation and all this stuff, I mean, I feel like Republicans were really headed towards a good November for the midterms.
For sure.
And it was looking pretty good for him too.
Like, to the point where I don't know that they would have purposely proposed any sort of new crazy legislation that was going to like rally the support of the other side to try to like, it felt like they were coasting with some like little critiques on the economy. And so, I mean, they were getting ready to really thump hard on the Biden is, bankrupting your 401k or whatever. And now all of a sudden, like the entire Democratic base is like mobilized and registering and getting ready to vote. I feel like they probably hate this. And that's why they won't shut up about like leaks and stuff and like what a travesty it is that this came out. And
yeah, the leak is what's fascinating about it. It's hard to assume anything other than it getting leaked by at this point, right? My guess is they were hoping to get all this thing, to get this rolling. So that way, like, I don't really know how the Supreme Court works as far as time goes on these things. I know see multiple iterations, and that like we're looking at a draft from February and now we're in May, and it's like, but they weren't going to just ride this out until 2024, right? It seems like it's going to pick up steam faster than that. So they must have been kind of gearing up to not just coast into an election win in 2024 before dealing with this, right?
I'm sure not. I also don't know how the Supreme Court works when it comes to that, but like I don't think cases take years in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I think the idea is by the time it actually gets accepted, you might be on the docket for a long time, but once you get heard, it's a more straighthtforward process.
Yeah, it takes years to get something to them. They have to work through all the like little appellates or whatever, you know.
Yeah, but it is tough.
Legal words.
Because who would leak it? Like, I mean, it seems like, you know, Democrats had the most to gain by this leak, but I don't know. It could go either. There's so many reasons it could leak. Like, if we're not looking at a final draft, it might. There's like politics is such a fucking game anyway, where it's like, let's just say this thing, and then they'll meet us here, and then we end up here, and then now we meet in the middle. You've conceded on some shit, and we're not going to do the thing you hate the most, and then we can pander to our audiences and pretend like we worked really hard and didn't won't reach across the aisle, and then everyone gets a little bit of what they want, and nothing gets accomplished, and that's kind of been the cycle for quite some time.
I mean, maybe it's like when you want to write like a really angry email and you write it and then you leave it in your drafts and you come back like a week later and you're like, oh, all right, let's tone it down a little bit. So maybe that's what Justice Alito was just sitting up late at night being like, and because of this law from 800 years ago, women can't get abortions now because you have no rights. And he comes back later. He's like, oh man, all right, I'm sober now. Time to take the edges off. Let's write a real opinion.
He saved that to his draft folder, but instead he accidentally like sent it to all the whips and best boys and grips
because he's
and
70.
Whatnot.
Because he's 70, and then he put in a ticket for his computer doesn't work right.
It's like when you forward an email and you're like, oh, you think you're replying to one person and you reply all to, and you're just like, this person's a fucking idiot, right?
Not to take a hard left turn into that. We can definitely come back to abortion. Have you guys ever been stuck on a reply all chain at work where like people keep replying to the chain to tell everyone to stop replying to the chain, but everyone's doing it like at the same time?
Oh my God.
No, not that.
Yeah.
I've been stuck on like every holiday, like or maybe a new store opens or something like that. And there'll be like this, we have like a corporate wide email where they'll just email pictures of like the store opening, like, look at the new store open. Here's a picture of the team. And that's fine. Like, that's no issues there. Send that out. Picture of the team. Everyone's excited. Dope. What's really annoying is that happens on like a Friday, and all weekend, every single store replies all. Like, just don't hit reply all. So like you come in, you're like, why do I have like 300 emails? I'm not used to. And then you're like, oh, now I have to sift through like every single one of the congratulations posts or like the Bitmojis that people think are cute.
Yeah, I was standing next to my wife's desk. She was showing me something at her computer, and someone emailed like 2 whole departments or something at her work. She said it was like 1,000 people to ask some mundane question. Like they used like just the department email address to be like, hey, where do I go to get a new like expenses card? I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. And then she just had to sit there while it's just ding, 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 just flying past. At one point, she just like gave up. You're like, I can't do anything until this is done. Everyone going, you don't have to reply. Hey, you don't have to reply. Hey, it's okay if you don't reply. And everyone was saying the exact same thing.
Do you guys switch your? I recently switched my email to conversations style, and that saves you a lot of stupid emails and replies. You can just be like, jump in 3 hours later and see how it concluded. It's really nice.
I definitely do that. I also do that with chats. If you use Microsoft Teams, sometimes a thread really starts hopping and you're like, mute for 2 hours. I'll come back later.
Yeah.
Unless somebody tags me. I feel like Casey, by his face, he's not relating to this white collar office experience in the same way we're talking about
He's
it.
a big man.
No.
He's a big wig.
I kind of like jump in like here and there and try to catch up for a second. But I think I'm kind of notoriously bad about like written communication as a whole, and I think I might be getting worse. It's just like there's so much of it, and it's like so hard to keep up with all of it.
There's so much
work,
useless
group
stuff,
texts, and my favorite group email one was maybe like 6-8 months ago during the like COVID surge, and everybody was kind of like reissuing their work guidelines and stuff like that. Like my company had said, sent out an email. It was basically like, hey, due to state law and stuff like that, like employees that are not vaccinated are going to be required to do something, whatever it was. It was a mask or something like that, or you had to show proof of vaccination for something. And like quite a few people replied to the entire company, like 400 email addresses being like, no, I don't. Like some broken sentence like, no, bad.
Dude, okay, while we're talking about the vaccination thing, that was obviously the height of political conversations and probably what soaked up a lot of Newsmax and Fox News at the time. And now we're past it. Is anyone talking about that anymore, or is everyone just like, well, all the people who got it aren't dead and this thing's kind of winding down? So
I think that's a lot of what it is, everyone's kind of reached the burnout point where unless you have a new variant that's significantly different, we have much better ways of treating it. A significant chunk of people are vaccinated and most hospitals are not drowning anymore. So they're going to be like,
right,
write it out.
Yeah.
I feel like at this point, like I would almost rather a decent chunk of people die than have to think about it anymore. Well, luckily, it would have to really hit home. It would have to be somebody important to me die before I'd be like, oh, I guess I'll consider this again for a while.
Yeah, I'm guessing where you guys are, no one's. It's like it's effectively over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like there's still a few people wearing masks, but it's kind of just
it's kind of the same here too, which is would have been less likely to be the case. I would have assumed that to be less likely. Massachusetts is definitely a much more liberal state in a lot of ways, in some ways. But yeah, I think that's just the general feel across the country is like,
well, also with like newer medication and with hospitals not being overrun and we have a couple more years of data and whatever, like I've been keeping an eye on the Department of Health web pages for the area. And it looks like even if you're unvaccinated now, we've got it under control enough and the variants aren't that bad that like you're probably going to be fine. Like there's a very, very low chance you're going to be seriously sick or die. So I think that also helps people to be like, like the worst case scenario is way less bad than it was a year ago. So who cares?
Yeah. However, China is certain areas of China are having a really tough time, and we have to like some of where we produce our goods and stuff are like, if we're gonna do audits or inspections on our products over there, they're like, they have to organize like these like moving your product to somewhere so they can be checked because China's like locking shit down hard because they can.
Yeah. Yeah,
they could. I mean, they could do it.
I haven't seen any news about it in a little bit, but over the past like month, some of the videos that came out of Shanghai were crazy.
Like the lockdowns.
Yeah,
like welding people's doors shut and stuff, or like welding the doors to the buildings.
Yeah,
I did not see that.
Or welding stuff across. It's not quite as diabolical as that sounds. Like welding stuff to make a barrier across the door to a building.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's weird. Like. It's so different. I mean, I'm not sure what people's feelings are over there about it. I do have a feeling that whatever messaging you're going to get from their government is not necessarily what their people feel about it, but it is. I mean, it's fairly draconian in the way it's just like, that's what you can do. I mean, they're a communist country. They can just.
They didn't look like they were enjoying it. They were all on their balcony screaming in the middle of the night.
Yeah. But what's crazy is like, they don't even have, excuse me. They won't use vaccines from anywhere outside of the country. Like, I mean, outside of
that just sounds patriotic to me.
Yeah, right. But they're
China
like,
first.
so there's what they have isn't as effective. It's not nearly as good, and they're just like, we just won't use
made in China.
Anyone else
Number
has.
one, made in China. Sounds like Sam's making a really like strong pro Second Amendment argument here for like those people locked up in those apartments. What are they supposed to do?
Well, I don't even know what the Second Amendment is.
Turns into. It's going to turn into like just this huge story arc of Sam becoming like a a flag waving, gun toting, like anti-abortion voter.
I bought a big truck and I got the biggest fucking flag I could find on Etsy to hang off the back of it.
On
And that
Etsy.
bitch flaps in the wind.
Tractor
It's
Supply.
sexy.
Tractor
Yep.
Supply.
Yeah.
Etsy.
Yeah.
I like Tractor Supply.
Every time I see people with flags on their trucks, like just waving, especially the bigger the flag, the more ISIS it feels. I don't know if you guys remember watching videos of ISIS driving around.
Yeah. Well, there's only like
it's
I
a
hate
Chevy instead of a Toyota.
Yeah.
Right. I hate to stereotype, but there's only one group. There's one genre of people that are putting the big flags in the trucks. Like, it's not like there's a wide diversity of thought when it comes to truck flags.
No. What's funny though is in my friend's town there was shout out Jesse, who you people have heard on the podcast before, but there was like this I don't know if it was, I don't know what the car was. I feel like it should be a Prius or something, but they took a line straight out of that book and had like a huge Biden flag and basically did the exact same type of shit, but all liberal shit. And it's stupid still. Like I don't, it doesn't get my stamp of approval, but depending on the person, it's either funny or sad. Like it could, if it's just trying to be funny about it, then that's okay, solid joke. But it's hard to really know when you're just seeing the car go by to know their motives. So
I think people tend to lose themselves in the irony of some of that stuff to the point where they don't really separate it very well anymore. It's not really a critique. It's more just, oh, this is my personality now.
Yeah, your identity is the irony now. You're just that enveloped in it.
So speaking of that stuff and irony, you know how like
irony inception.
People reclaimed the word slut, you know, to be like, now you can use it as a compliment or whatever. What if the Democrats, like, people use it in favorable terms towards themselves? I'm not saying you should go throwing it at other people.
No, yeah. I'm definitely going to start saying it all the time.
On strangers.
Yeah. There's some nuance. Sorry, I was just skimming right past that part. I assumed people would understand. When in doubt, still don't say it. All right.
No,
so anyway,
I think I'm just going to go back to sup slut. Remember that?
I was gonna anyway. Where I was going with this before I took an unfortunate anecdote.
Go ahead, slut.
Well, all right. Yeah. Well. I kind of like.
We were trying to figure out new nicknames for everybody.
I don't want that to be mine. The Democratic Party platform, they ought to reclaim "Let's Go Brandon." That's where I was going with that. Like thinking about them driving around with the flags on the trucks, and like, turn "Let's Go Brandon" into a positive thing. Like they're cheering on Biden to like keep the Senate.
I challenge Biden to legally change his name to Brandon. If he does that. I'll fucking vote for him.
I mean, how many more years is he gonna have to put up with that? By the time they mail him the new Social Security cards, like, will it even matter?
Yeah. Hopefully not. If we're lucky. That's the best way out of this shit pile.
Isn't it like, you think about how annoying it is when like irritating people claim something that you like or that's cool. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, like, now it's more associated with them than it is with, you know, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Movies are always the best example because it's like you would see a movie and love it. And then like the most annoying people you knew would like pick up that movie and just start quoting it all the time.
Napoleon Dynamite is the prime example of that.
It's the prime example. It's the best example for sure.
There isn't a better. I mean, other ones are like great movies that just feel like they like got played out. I would put in, I don't know if other people feel similarly, but I would put Inception into that category.
I was going to say Superbad. To me, that's
Superbad. Yeah. I'll give you that.
That's one of those. Yeah.
But
I mean,
Napoleon Dynamite
feels like that's almost cheating.
Napoleon Dynamite, when it came out, was very much like, it wasn't super widely known. There were a few people who were like, oh, I got to see that. And I think the PG rating really helped because Christian kids are the ones that really ruined that for me, as far as I remember. Was like,
well, same, but it was, I only knew Christian kids, so they ruined everything.
There's a pattern there.
Yeah, that was like the greatest grassroots marketing campaign ever done. You know, it was like Napoleon Dynamite, Barack Obama's candidacy. Goes 1-2.
That's it.
You know, it was effective. Like my mom does not really like movies as a whole, like does not watch a ton of movies, thinks movies are dumb. She and my dad watched Napoleon Dynamite, and the next morning, starting school, she was complaining to my sister and I how dumb it was. And for an hour and a half, she complained about it while laughing, while she repeated funny things that were so stupid that she couldn't help but laugh at them. And but it was like an hour and a half of her doing that. That was it was better than actually seeing the movie, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like there's occasionally those movies where you don't love it, but there are parts of it that explaining it make it sound. I'm trying to think. There was like a few comedies. Like I guess Superbad was actually one of those for me, where you're like, there's things that I feel like are conceptually funny in it, but then when you watch it, you're just like, I didn't love it when I saw it, and I think the problem might have been I was still too Christian at the time to appreciate it. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is okay. 40-Year-Old Virgin was another one of those where I was like, I don't know, this is a lot. I probably shouldn't be watching this, but it's kind of funny.
Then shout out to anyone who thought Superbad wasn't as funny as it could have been. If you haven't seen Booksmart, it came out like 2 or 3 years ago. It's almost exactly the same concept as Superbad, except it's girls. Even Jonah Hill's sister is one of them.
Oh.
And it's way funnier than Superbad. We just rewatched it last night. I hadn't seen it in like 2 years, and it's amazing. It's an awesome movie.
Booksmart.
Okay. Booksmart. It's
never heard of it.
Olivia Wilde's directorial debut, but like the concept is so similar to Superbad, you just have to roll with it.
I'll roll with it.
But anyway, abortion.
Yeah. Back on abortion.
I don't feel like the Democrats are going to use that to win anything in the midterms, because Democrats are really good at losing.
They're good
snatching
at it.
Defeat from the jaws of victory. Like they have the most perfect thing lined up, and instead they're going to do some like milquetoast, like protesting and some shaking of fists, and then they're going to like not pass it by 48-52, and then they're going to say that sends a strong message, and then they're going to retreat back to their corner and lose in November. That's my prediction.
Yeah. Well, and then you have losers like I don't think any name boils my blood more than Joe Manchin.
Yeah, he sucks.
Like, have you met Matt Gaetz?
I haven't met him personally, no. I'm just like, what are you even doing? Like, what's your point? Why do you exist? Like, that guy just clearly gets off on being a naysayer. He loves it. He gets like,
yeah, I think he's got all the attention of the country on him right now, and he doesn't know what to do.
It gives so much power when it's that close. And
for what type of power? The power where everyone hates you, but they need you to do their thing.
Well, Google his house. I'm sure it looks great.
Like, oh, I'm sure he's got plenty of money. He's been taking coal donations for decades. But I'm saying at this point, what else are you going to do? Like, you have to know everyone hates you on your party and the other party, and you're never going to be president. Like, you've officially reached your peak.
Oh yeah, he's peaked. That guy is peaked hard. I feel like
he's kind of like a McCain. It's like a John McCain was one of those where it was like, I could go either way. It was like, I wish you'd die. And then he did.
And then he did. After he got
Casey also
getting captured.
Yeah, I would say Casey also doesn't like his heroes getting captured. Oh.
I think it was like
but really, how do you feel about prisoners of war?
Oh, that's bad. What? I don't
see John McCain. He was so scarred by the experience. He championed every military conflict ever, even the ones we somehow got away with not doing.
Hey, he's a military man. He understands his reaction. You wouldn't understand.
After getting like poked by a stick in a bamboo cage for a few years, he was just
I will give him the credit.
He's just like, yeah, this is fucking kill everything. Fuck this shit. Show you how this shit feels. Oh my god.
Listeners, Casey is reclined back in his chair, holding his eyes. He is weeping.
Oh my god.
Oh, Sam wins.
Hey, that was special.
And actually, I had some nice stuff to say about John McCain. I just don't feel like now's the time. You just got to let that go.
I actually don't have a ton of shade to throw at him. He's not my favorite, but I just think that I don't really know where to go with it from there.
I think McCain is like the perfect example of how detached politicians are from the policies and the things that they push through. It's like you look at how many people lined up for different military conflicts. Like a lot of people have died partly because of John McCain. But then like as soon as he's dead, it's everybody, oh, John McCain, he's a hero. I think he was the Maverick.
There are, I don't agree with that. I think there are plenty of good things to say about him. I wouldn't agree that he championed every single war from then on. I think he was notably different. He was still a war hawk, but like he was definitely a conservative war hawk. But he did seem to have a slightly different perspective based on his years of torture. You would have hoped it was a significantly different perspective, but whatever. I do want to give him a shout out though. If you remember, he like after he was diagnosed with brain cancer, he was 80. He had just had surgery. He was the final vote to keep the Affordable Care Act from being repealed. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like he dragged his dying body in there and did like a very dramatic thumbs down to make Trump hate him forever.
That's right. I feel like that's
when he crawled off and died.
That's when the left was like, all right, maybe he's not all bad, but he held on long enough to do that. Like,
I mean, that's pretty gangster. Like dragging your dying body into the Senate floor just to like, because he could have voted by proxy. Like he definitely went down there in person he hated, just to rub it in Trump's face.
He wanted to get his face in there.
Yeah.
You don't get on TV Trump voting by proxy.
Which is fine. I'm glad he hated Trump.
One cool thing in 40 years.
It's like
I think there's a couple others, but yes, I agree with you for the most part. You'd hope that somebody that went through the experiences he went through would have a very different outlook on life, not like 5% different. Not like he's one of the only people, in the early 2000s going, I don't know about this whole torture thing, guys. If you'd like to, I could tell you some stories while everyone's just storming past him to like expand Guantanamo.
I know. You're like, hey, remember how much you didn't like that? Did you or what?
No, he was opposed to it even back then. Like, and that was something that people definitely called out. Like, well, of course he's going to be like pussy.
Yeah. You didn't like that. Oh, you weren't tough enough.
For the record, no, I don't think anyone ever said that. Everyone was much more complimentary, but yeah,
that was a George W. hot mic moment. Who did he cuss at?
What's McCain bitching about again?
Who did
my arms hurt? I can't raise them. Okay.
Man, remember the George W. Bush hot mic moment where he dropped an F-bomb on somebody?
That's right. That is right.
Who was he talking about?
I'm looking. Okay,
Jamie looked that up.
On a hot mic thing in 2006, he was talking to British Prime Minister Tony Blair about the Middle East and said, see, the irony is what they need to do is get Syria to get Hezbollah to stop doing this shit and it's over. I don't think that's it though, is it? I'm scanning.
Well, that's a pretty good look at his very educated insight on Middle Eastern policy.
So, I'm reading through a Politico article on presidential hot mic moments. I'd never heard this one. Ronald Reagan in 1984. This was on a hot mic. My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes. And he was just making a joke to somebody and didn't know the mic was on. That's actually pretty funny.
And that's how planet Earth died.
Things have really improved with us since.
Yeah, I was saying the year 2022. It's just jokes, guys. It's just jokes. 38 years later.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple of. I remember being like, I remember having to feel like I needed to make excuses for George Bush using unchristian language. So, that's what I remember about that. It's like, I don't know, maybe he sometimes
say that.
It's okay.
Not my good Christian George W.
Yeah. Well, I remember. Do you guys remember when he was like, when he talked about how he had prayed about whether or not he needed to go to war, and God was like, "Yeah, you should."
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that stuff similar to that.
Just like swelling with pride.
Yeah, it was like, well, he is a Christian and he did pray about it, and God told him, so that must be case closed, right? I mean, God wouldn't tell him something that he shouldn't do. That would be awful. God's not awful. So yeah, dude, it's crazy to think about about anybody, any president, any one with that much power to be like, look, I was on the fence about it, but I prayed and God was like, you need to go to war.
And everyone being like, oh, that makes us feel better.
And then he goes to war, like without the support of anything. He had public support.
Colin Powell. Yeah.
He had public support, but
yeah.
Not
that's
the UN,
something important to remember.
Not the Senate.
The public wasn't like 80-something% supported, 70-something.
Yeah.
Like the country was extremely united about glassing the Middle East. So
I was
that going for him.
Really shocked listening to some podcasts recently on the Iraq war. Like in the lead up to our invasion of Iraq, the largest protests in history happened around the world. Like I forget how many different countries people came out and protested the war and stuff like that. And I mean, I feel like we didn't hear anything about
Not
that
at
here.
all. Nothing. It was all like, victory is imminent, boys. Like that was basically, it was America's back to being America. Let's do it. Ain't gonna hold us down.
It was about 7 months later that Bush was like, mission accomplished.
when he flew in the jet and he jumped out and blew a bubble with his bazooka bubble gum and we win. Good news. Terrorist dead.
And there was an infant watching that at home who would grow up and go to die in that war one day.
No shit,
dude.
It's that's what's awful. It's like literally people who weren't even born yet died in that same war that he declared mission accomplished on.
I think the F-bomb may have been Joe Biden to Barack Obama after the Affordable Care Act passed. Apparently he hugged Obama and then they heard him on a mic whispering, this is a big effing deal.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh,
I don't remember people caring
that's
about
less
that.
exciting.
Well,
yeah.
I feel like Bush definitely had.
He had
I'm sure
he called somebody an a-hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
It Adam may not Clymer, a reporter for the New York Times. He said it to Dick Cheney, and Dick Cheney said, yeah, big time.
I mean, that feels almost like extremely nice compared to what people get called these days, like what reporters get called.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney's like, here's a cookie. Now be quiet. Daddy's talking.
Oh, my God. Well, all right. We should go ahead and introduce our guest. And our guest today is Jason Brammer. And I found Jason online. He's an artist. He is an incredible artist. If you're following the page on Instagram, I've shared a good bit of his posts and the work that he's done. He's been a full-time artist in Chicago for like 22 years or something wild like that. He's done some. If you live in that area, you've probably seen some of his murals around, but he'll do some stuff inside restaurants. He does he'll do commissioned paintings. He's really incredible. He sent me a bunch of pictures of his art studio. I'll probably share a bunch of this stuff after we drop this episode, because I just loved what he was doing so much that I had reached out to him. And turns out he also, grew up evangelical Christian and had some pretty fun experiences with it. But what's interesting about him is he left it and never really thought twice about it for so long that it was kind of the engagement that we've had with him that brought him back to a lot of the memories and ideas, because none of his friends, his peer groups, no one's part of it. So even when he does talk about it, it kind of falls on deaf ears. And for a long time, it's never really come up in his personal and in social life and stuff like that. So it was really fun to be able to talk to him, and you could definitely I've kept in touch with him a good bit since this, and it's just like, because we recorded this one a good few weeks back, and it's like, holy shit, the amount of things that you forget about, or he was able to, which I think is hilarious because so many of us have been unable to just let the past wash away in a way that we'd like. But he's a great guy. And if you're in the Chicago area, you should definitely try to find, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know Chicago geography, but you should try to find some of his work and check it out. But either way, really fun guy. I'm excited for you guys to hear this conversation. So before we cut to our interview, we should.
If you are enjoying the podcast,
that's what I was trying to say.
With anybody and everybody who might also enjoy it. If you really like it, go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. I think Spotify's even doing reviews now.
Yeah, they are. It's cool.
Give us a 5-star review. We'd appreciate it.
You don't even have to write shit. You can just click the 5-star. No pressure to write anything.
The more reviews we get, the closer we are to getting George
making
W.
our fat
Bush on the
stack.
podcast.
What?
So. And with that, enjoy our conversation with Jason Brammer.
Hey, everybody. We're back with our guest, Jason Brammer. Jason, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've been talking. So for the listeners, I somehow found I got connected with you on Instagram because your artwork really stuck out to me. You're a fantastic artist, and after perusing your page for a bit, sent you a message and we got to talking. Turns out you also share some of our fun experiences of an evangelical childhood, and we've been talking ever since.
People that grew up Christian.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in a new kind of, not really a bubble in a bit negative sense, but you've removed yourself from that world in a way that I'm impressed by. You seem to have like almost forgot about it as much as one can.
Yes, I'm far removed from the evangelical world. My connection to the evangelical culture now is my parents, and that's it. And so that being said, if anybody is listening who is practicing evangelicalism or part of that realm, I would like to say that I might say some fucked up shit that will be highly, highly offensive to people, perhaps. So that's my disclaimer. So we'll just
put the trigger warning on it for current evangelicals.
I don't know. Maybe the intro, like maybe you guys weeded everybody out with something. I don't know. But if I'm just saying,
we've done our best.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they know the specific breed of scum that we are.
Yeah, we've established ourselves as heresy speakers from time to time. So,
well, I love that. I think what you guys are doing is awesome.
Oh, thanks, man.
It feels kind of isolating, or you feel that's like the fact that you all are talking about this stuff openly is good for people to hear, and I think it does a lot of people good, and a lot of people that grew up in that scene.
Yeah, thanks.
Share the story.
Dude, why don't you guys start us off with a little bit about who you are in the world that you kind of the brand of evangelicalism that you came up in, not with. I don't think you invented your own kind.
It's a long podcast. We'll get into that. So I was born in a small town in Ohio, Lancaster, Ohio, and I just outside of Columbus. It was a Church of Christ, so pretty hard right, ultra conservative fundamentalist, and my father was the pastor. And so the idea in fundamentalism, as you all know, the idea is like what we need to do is, if you want to get right with God, we need to go back to the basics, and we need to go back to where the source. And it's funny. I'm laughing as well. But the idea that we look back to Leviticus as like a guidebook or something,
Yeah.
It's like the old. I mean, it's a cliche. It's like, what's the book that turned you against Christianity? It's like the book of Leviticus and like the Old Testament. I read it, and so anyway, I was brought up in that real far right, ultra conservative. Then we moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. My dad was a pastor there, and it was, and then he was. My dad's awesome, by the way. I mean, just like he wasn't we've made amends and whatever. It's like it's good between us after some time. So
that's great. I don't know that everyone has people's experiences may vary on this one.
Yeah. The fact that your dad didn't abandon you for his crotchety old church family is like a positive. So that's a feather in your cap.
Great. Well, he's retired. So, but yeah.
Was Church of Christ? I always forget They're so I always forget that. Is that the charismatic one with the tongues and stuff?
No, it was just real blue collar. Just I'm small church, like intense. The sermons are pretty lit up. I mean, he'd get, it's just like is intense. And then the church where, I mean, this is like third grade. I left up to third grade, and then the Indianapolis church was more. That ended up getting more like kind of mega churchy, softer band, drums, and then all that stuff.
Boy, that's a big shift.
Yeah.
What motivated that? I mean, it sounds like you moved, but
we moved. My dad, I don't want to speak for him. I don't think that he related to that hard right thing, like just like that real extremism. I mean, he's just their spiritual path. I won't speak for them, but it's just kind of become more accepting and over the years. And like that, I look back and all this stuff. I mean, like my vitriol and like anger against evangelicalism, it's geared towards Sunday school teachers from the 70s. People that have been dead for a long time. It's like that, like the shit that I was told as a little kid is like in the 70s, 80s in Ohio. I mean, cray,
Yeah, well, let's hang out there for a second then. Did they use flannel graphs to expose you to the gospel message?
Yes. Yes. Flannel graphs. Yes.
Little sheep and shepherds, just kind of putting them over on the pasture.
I'm in the room now. I'm in the concrete cinder block room, and I'm in second grade, and I'm like leaning back in the chair, and the teacher chastises me, and I swear I looked her in the eye, and I was like, "What difference does it make?" My buddy Jared was like, "Jared and I are going to hell anyway." Okay. Fucking told my second grade teacher that in her fucking eye. She's like, "Oh my God." She's like, "Go to the hallway," because I felt like alienated from all this stuff. And so I thought that I was going to hell.
That's actually really, why'd you feel alienated from it at such a young age? Most people are just like along for the ride.
I rejected it. I would never been baptized.
Wow. That's very interesting to me. I almost, even if people didn't buy in, most people are just like, I don't know, you're a kid, right? You just believe the shit that people tell you. Even if you don't really believe it, you're just like, yeah, I mean, you don't have any other options. You haven't been, nothing else has been explained to you. So you go with it. And then those are the kids in high school who just like do whatever they want and get caught smoking weed out behind the church and all that kind of shit. But like, I think that's so funny that like, it never stuck. It didn't sink in and you didn't buy in.
I would say that it did sink in.
Yeah.
I did buy in. And to your point, I was the kid with weed in high school. Let's be clear on that.
Sure.
I was the dude. We're doing like our youth things or whatever. It's like, all right, I've got a different program for you.
I'm curious, this cinder block room, did it have those like radiant hot water heat registers along the walls that you'd occasionally burn your arms on if you lean back in your chair?
Man, Casey, I blocked that out if that's part of we had a carpet ball. That was like a game where you'd play like carpet ball with the...
Oh, carpet ball was fun. That was a good summer camp game.
Yeah. And you have your lunatic youth minister like fucking off his meds, bouncing off the walls or whatever. That was fun.
You guys are getting so caught up in the carpet ball, you're forgetting about Jesus. Okay, you need to put this carpet ball aside for a second. We're banning carpet ball for the next 3 weeks. I need to see a commitment from you guys.
That dude was all about the carpet ball, but so no heaters, no. Like it was like a garden unit space, but so that was like second grade. I think I moved in third grade. But okay. I listened to so I'm a new fan to the podcast. I've heard Jesse Cale, Nick Thune, Alyssa Sabo.
Yeah.
I heard that. And then last night I heard you guys' origin story.
So it went way back.
It was perfect. Perfect. Set the clock for 4:20, put on my headphones, listen to my new friends about. So Casey, you were talking about it does, like there's the part of your story that resonated with me was that aspects of any kind of indoctrination to anything, they do seep into your psyche. and whether or not you resist it or whatever. So it does. I mean, every adult in your life is telling you a really specific thing. I mean, you have to undo it, or you have to understand what's been done to you, or you have to address it. If it's just, you just go on, then it's like, God made weeds because of Eve, or, whatever. It's just like, huh? So
that's true. Like, even the stuff that you don't wholeheartedly buy into, like, I never really bought the music side of things. I mean, we sat through all these sermons that were like, they would start at the most extreme, which was usually rap music to them. And then they would work their way down until they were like chastising you for listening to like Southern gospel. And I never bought into any of that, but there's still like that rings in the back of your head when you're like, man, everybody else seems like they're really into this and I don't feel it. And maybe it's because I'm listening to DC Talk. I don't know.
Your brain's been corrupted. You've let the devil take hold, and now you're on a dark path.
Maybe I should throw away that Leonard Skinner Greatest Hits CD from Walmart.
Did you guys have the dude who would come around, who's like, I'm Eddie Brammer. I'm here to expose you to the evils of rock music. Like, when I was, like, the Satanic Panic when I was a kid in the 80s, dude, they'd come in, this dude rolled in, and they would tell you like these really dirty innuendos, like Cyndi Lauper, she bop. If you read the lyrics, it's about females touching themselves. It's like they read all the lyrics and like read into everything, and they're like obsessed with it, and like Depeche Mode. Who knows what S&M means? You're just like, huh? Like, what are you talking about?
We missed the majority of the Satanic Panic. We were like, it kind of fizzled out when we were probably around the time that we were kids. We grew up in like the 90s, really.
They'd still queue up the VHSs once in a while, though. Like, what was the chubby guy with the earring and the long curly hair? You know,
Mike Warnke.
Mike Warnke.
Yes.
Last podcast on the left did like a great series on Mike Warnke, and dude sucks. You were like prime. That was you were right in the middle of that, though.
I was in Heritage, and then jumping forward, I went to a Christian, not a private school, a Christian school. One of you guys made that distinction, which is nice. I went to a Christian school from like 6th grade through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so that whole, like, in Bible class, we had a Bible class that I failed. They played Mike Warnke like for real. And they would take us out and they would show us, I'm just riffing here. I'm like the dude, you guys were talking about some ministry you had on who wouldn't shut up. Like, I'm that dude who just like.
You're not that dude. I can tell you that much.
I haven't listened to the episode, but I'll try not to monologue. We went out and they took us outside, and they're just like, they set up cones in Bible class, and they're just like, these space, they're like, this is the 6 cubits, this is the ark, like the space that it took up. And we're like these dumb kids like looking up, and we're just like, oh, this is the size of the ark. Wow. Like for real. I mean, I'm telling my friends that now. They're just like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody taught you science, or like you didn't learn, you weren't educated in a traditional form. It's like, no.
Yeah, they don't. Your friends probably don't even know what a cubit is.
A cubit, man. I may not either. What's that?
Oh, the cubit.
The cubit is a length from like your chin to the very bottom hair on your ball sack.
Yeah.
No, the cubit. That's what the arc is measured in. That's what you're saying.
Fingertip to elbows.
Oh,
which is hilarious.
It's not an exact measurement.
Because, like, you know, a few hundred years ago, saying like it was 40 cubits wide and 40 cubits long or whatever it was, probably made it sound gargantuan. But now it's like, yeah, I mean, Jeff Bezos' boat has a dinghy that size, you know?
Right. And it's like, how long is the dude's who measured? Like, what's his cubit?
I know.
My cubit is shorter than your cubit, I can tell.
Work right.
Exactly. Weird.
It's so funny when you see it measured. You hear, like, because you like, it plays up in your mind, like what the size of the arc is. and then when you do see it, you're like, there's more animals than that. I know for sure there's more animals than that.
I'm no scientist, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that everything on Earth did not fit in that.
And then I like the theories that like, well, listen, okay, we know, we understand space and spatial awareness. We get it. So really how this worked was they got a bunch of babies, and the babies, they hibernated the whole time, even animals that don't normally hibernate. And you're like, that's how you like, and that's what's funny is like, so growing up with the creation, like the creationism, Ken Ham, all that kind of stuff, you're like, you're told this, and then you build everything around it. So when something doesn't make sense, you can literally just make something up. Well, of course, the animals just hibernated. That's how this works. And like, then if you've like thrown in another factor, they're like, well, also they had a shrink ray on board, because that's just as plausible as all the animals hibernating.
Why not?
Wasn't there only like one porthole at the top where they must have had to carry like buckets of like elephant dumps?
Have you seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Okay, so there was a time portal.
He's sleeping with his daughters and getting wasted in a cave. It's like, what?
I know, it's crazy. I used to read. My family used to read the Bible together. Like that's like I was me and all my siblings homeschooled. So we would sit around and we would have our Bible class, and we would read. We had a Bible that was in chronological order, and we would read through, and we would get to those points, and we're just like, wait a second, what?
Right.
But then you ask your mom, like, we haven't talked about sex yet, but we're over here like, so wait, what just happened?
Noah's banging his daughters. What is going on?
His son is cursed for all eternity because he walked in and saw him drunk and covered him up.
It's like Dad built a boat on a whim and then listened to the entire world die screaming outside of it. He deserves a drink.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Anyway, so this is all on your flannel graph, right? Is that
flannel graph? Yeah. So I'm in Indianapolis, growing up in the church. I guess, do you want me to continue the Christian path, or?
Yeah, do whatever you want. If we have questions, we'll stop you. And as you've already experienced, we will derail this incessantly.
I appreciate the derailment. Just put a marker. Sometimes I get derailed myself. I would say one significant thing that happened to me in high school was I got a book by Ram Dass.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
Is a teacher who passed recently. But so I was reading Ram Dass in high school, and my parents found it. And Ram Dass, for those of you that don't know, is an Eastern teacher that's from the Vedanta tradition, which is a form of Hinduism. And so, wonderful man. So it was this huge deal, massive ordeal when they found this book. I had a little, like some incense or something, and it was at an altar, or they thought it was whatever, freaked out. And so I had to hide everything that I was listening to. Red Hot Chili Peppers, that had a secret hiding place, Smashing Pumpkins, like all that, Jane's Addiction, all this. U2 I could keep out in pub. U2 was, but I pretty much, I wasn't into, I wouldn't say I hated it. I was not into Christian music at all. I was playing in bands at the time in high school, and we were doing shows with hardcore. Like we would play like hardcore shows with punk rock bands. And then we weren't a hardcore band, but it's called Planet Earth. And so we did our thing. But actually the church, I'm talking shit about the church. Like I was in the band there. I gigged. I learned how to play bass. I met the lead singer of the band that I'm still super tight with. Tim Jones, a singer in Nashville. And it's like so there's a lot of beautiful connections and friendships and all that. But I just was always resistant to it. And I felt a lot of scrutiny after the Ram Dass thing. And I felt like through that evangelical eye, there's a scrutiny. It's like, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you watching? And you guys, like the youth minister, edited Airplane. So it's like the boobs are out of it, or they edit it to where you can, it's like that kind of thing. But you guys riff a little on that stuff, but that kind of shit. So
Who gave you who introduced you to Ram Dass?
I don't know.
Really?
I just got a Ram Dass book, and that was just I don't know what I wanted a different path, I think, at the time, but I had to be real secretive and sneaky, and I'm taking a lot of acid. I'm in high school, smoking a lot of herbs, and
goes hand in hand with Ram Dass.
Start partying, yeah.
So that's pre-internet, right? You're not like looking up like Eastern religions on Ask Jeeves or whatever the fuck.
No.
So I mean, it was really just a quest for something different led you to a book by Ram Dass.
Probably the cover in a New Age section at a bookstore.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Ask, did that get categorized? Like, did your parents think that you were into the New Age stuff?
Oh yeah, of course. And on that note, I mean, just in that culture, that's like there's a shelf, and it's like crystals, New Age, Buddha, Hindu, Shiva, like it's all the same thing to like that world. It's like Buddhism has nothing to do with crystals. I identify as a Buddhist, as a secular Buddhist. And so it's like the idea that he's Buddhist, it's into the occult, and it's like this esoteric weird shit. It's like, it's more, that's not, it's not it's not it. You haven't taken enough time to learn, like, you don't care. The only reason, this is like an Alan Watts thing, but it's like a Christian, like an evangelical Christian who's trying to convert somebody. The only reason they learn about another religion is so that they can undermine it and learn how to win you over to their side. It's like, they don't care. It's like they're the judge and the jury because it's their religion,
Yeah, that's, that I think I've mentioned this before, this analogy. But when I was at Liberty, working with, he was a good guy too. Like, it's just, we were all in that bubble and we all had these thoughts. But wonderful. He had mentioned, it was like, oh, how do you, he had heard someone compare it to people who investigate counterfeits, right? Counterfeit dollars, counterfeit currency. It's like, you don't learn everything there is to know about all the counterfeits. Like, what you do know is the actual dollar so well that you can always spot a fake. And that's like basically Christian apologetics. Like, we're just going to learn this. We'll know it's so good, and we'll just be able to pick apart everything else. And it's like,
whatever you do, don't learn about it. Just learn what you know really well.
What they don't tell you about in that analogy is all the people who made a living counterfeiting money and who never got caught. So it's as good as the real thing, right?
Right. But yeah, so this jamming along in high school, I went to the Christian junior high. It was kind of funny. We had as a non-Christian, me and my friend were in a group that we called R.A.D, R.A.D, which was Rebels Against Discipline.
I love it.
I hope this turns into a tattoo.
Oh.
Yes.
For the listener, I'm showing them my full back ink of the R.A.D logo. And for the A in the R.A.D is the symbol for anarchy. So
yeah, perfect.
That's how we rolled at Heritage Christian with Tim Summers, my boy, and we would just trade notes all the time. But it was so funny, like the shit that would go down, because he was like, well, one of the things that we got in a lot of trouble for that I think it was one of the hardest times I'd ever laughed was like, when the school buses are leaving and they're all lined up and they're just like all taken off. You were homeschooled, but Casey, when
I saw it. I've seen it a couple of times in passing.
Yeah, I've watched movies.
I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
And there's thousands of kids at a school. No. So my friend runs out, like he's like flailing papers, like, wait. And he like the bus stops and he's like, oh, sorry, wrong bus. And he does that every single bus. And I'm like in 7th grade, dude, like trying not to pee my pants. And I'm just like, darn, he keeps doing it. And then the principal or the transportation, this is Vaisakhi, comes out, and we go into her office, dude. It's the last day. It's the day before spring break, and we're getting ready. And like parents are called, and she's bitching me out. And my friend Tim gets behind her and does like that lip tuck thing, like that. You know, when you tuck your lip. He starts like imitating her behind her back, like right behind her. And I can't. I just start dying. She's like, "What is so funny?" Parents called in. We're grounded for like over spring break. It was awesome.
It's so fun. I love when kids that young do something that's legitimately funny. Like, because there's so many not funny things that kids do at that age.
Right.
And when they actually, when there's like the funny kid, when they can actually hone in on like good humor, I love it. That's such a good one.
So it was worth being grounded over spring break to have that memory of my awesome friend.
And all he did, what's so funny is you got grounded just for laughing at it. Like, what, you didn't do anything.
Thank you. Thank you. Dude, I'm calling.
Is that school still around? I'm calling.
You're gonna call Miss Vaisakhi and my mother and explain that I was not part of this. So anyway, I felt like in that school, man, it was just real uptight, and they were more uptight than my parents were, frankly. They were like hardcore creation, hardcore, just frankly, like not that smart of a scene. I guess
I feel like that was often the case with Christian schools. I know so many kids who went to Christian schools from fairly regular homes, but it was always Christian school that was like, they're so uptight.
It's part of what you're buying.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not paying extra to send you to a normal school. Like, we want you to be in like a Hitler youth camp. What was the dress code?
We could wear Bugle Boy, baggy pants. It was like tucked in, no hair on collar, no bed. Like you had to sign something that you wouldn't smoke or swear. We were just like, fuck this. Like this. I mean, I was so not into the scene. And then so then ended up going to getting into high school. I went to a public school, and then I got it's like integrated into a more mainstream scene, making friends and then being involved, being immersed and pulled into the youth group stuff from my church, having to do all that stuff, but just resisting it. I mean, just being like, I had people at the Heritage, I had dudes like the principals, like, what is keeping you from the Lord? Just like aggressively. I did a cartoon. I sent one of you guys a cartoon of it. And it's like, and the paddle behind in the back is Proverbs 4:12 or whatever. It's like, spare the rod, spoil the child thing. And so, dude, it was like, I got in trouble. I got all these detentions, and I got pulled in there, and he's like, all right, I'm going to spank you. I was like, I'm going to give you 5 on Friday, 5 right now. And then I'm going to give you 5 on Monday. So you can think about it over the weekend. And
he spanked you?
Oh yeah, dude.
What the fuck?
Well, like like a paddle, like a thing, like a big paddle.
Yeah, like a fucking brick oven pizza fucking paddle.
You're like beating the dust out of a rug.
2 hands on.
No, actually, it wasn't. That would not be aerodynamic enough. It was like a thin thing. A pizza thing would be too slow.
Put holes in it. There's holes drilled through it, isn't there?
He's got a Ken Griffey Jr. poster on the wall next to him. He's just checking his stance.
Like cricket paddle? Is that
Monday, paddling day.
Oh my god! And you know what? You thought about it all weekend, and so did he. He was fucking jerking off all weekend.
He was just at half-mast all weekend. This is like,
oh my god, no!
The next 6 months after 9/11 for him. Just
no. I refuse to put that in my mind. But
oh my god!
So yeah, so it was a controlling situation where they like to control what you think, and they believe that there's a deity that's in your head that reads your thoughts from afar and perceives your coming and going. And if you make your bed in the depths, surely there my love will find you, and all that stuff. So it seeps in. I got it. I got a little bit of the.
It's in there.
Yeah,
It's hard to root out.
Yeah,
it's like you need one of those little tools that you dig the brown spot out of a potato with.
yeah.
You know, just, what? So the paddler. Is it all right if we just call him Daddy? We'll
call him Gary.
Gary.
Because that's his name.
Describe what is Gary like? I want to get a picture of him.
He was a real if we were imitating, we'd say, "Hey, guy, how's it going, guy? Just wanted to run a couple, like super docile, just almost like your buddy kind of thing. Real chill." But then, then he's got this.
The spanking was the outlet, apparently.
I mean, they were like, in their defense, they were saving me from the flames of hell. So, of course, they're going to do whatever they can. And he was like, it was just like, tell me about this. I saw some posters in your locker, guy. Tell me about this band, Cheap Trick. What does that mean to you? What does a cheap trick mean to you? And I saw the outfield, play deep. What does that mean? Play deep. How do you think? It's another one of those dudes who's like analyzing the lyrics and being like, if you know what I mean.
I want you to want me.
Yeah, exactly.
All this time, he's not picking up on all the sexual innuendos and the worship music he's singing on the weekends.
Right.
Checkered flag pattern is a subtle sign of Satanism. So, that's why I don't listen to Cheap Trick anymore.
Yeah, of course. And I had a cassette player to evade Gary's eye. I took like a crayon box and I put my cassette player in it and cut it around it, and then would run one arm up, one speaker up the hand, and listen to probably like the Circle Jerks.
That's some Bart Simpson shit right there. That's nice.
Circle Jerks. Just kind of like, fuck this. Like we were punk rock skateboard kids and listen to Misfits and stuff.
Could you just see him like in a parent teacher conference being like, I'm a little concerned that Jason still carries crayons with him everywhere. I mean, he's going into high school. He might ought to go up to markers at least.
Really, I'm worried
Colored
about his
pencils.
career. I got busted with that, and it was a huge deal because of the deception. It was the deception. It wasn't the music. It's the deceptive nature of your being.
Dude, it's wild. Casey's mentioned this a few times, but it's like at Christian school, it's they'll make the biggest because like the rules that are broken are so benign. Like they're not real rules. They're just so strange.
Right.
Like everything that's small, like if you're in a public high school and they found you with like sneaking, like you're a way to listen to music during class, it'd be like, whatever. They'd be like, yeah, you can't do that. Duh. And then maybe get a detention or something like that. They're not going to be like, take it personally. But at these schools, they're like, they make such a big deal out of nothing. Like the stakes are so high. It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
The better of Daddy. I mean, Gary.
Gare Bear.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Is he on Facebook? I'm going to find him on Facebook.
When nobody's doing anything wrong, you find a reason to be upset with people. It's always like catastrophic too. It's like, I just don't know about this path that Jason's going down. I mean, I just see this like pattern of rebellion in his life. And, I mean, we have a rule. You have to tuck your shirt in during class. And I don't know how many times I have to tell him during the week to tuck his shirt in, but it's a lot. It's a pattern.
Dude, did you work there? Are you my daddy, Gary?
That's my retirement plan.
Old Daddy Gare Bear.
Go down and brainwash a bunch of idiots. It's not that hard.
Was there like a particular way that people broke dress code? Like Will Smith style, right? He would turn his in the Fresh Prince, he would turn his jacket inside out.
Broke? No, I don't. I can't think of anything. I just like leaving, getting out of that. They're dumb.
Just leaving
and wearing whatever I wanted. I think that was I broke free. But you guys were talking about you talk about summer camp sometimes.
Yeah.
And all that.
Christian camps are always fun. I feel like I've mentioned this one, but I never did real Christian summer camp. I guess if we're talking a full summer. No, a week-long thing. I only did that once, and it was called the Worldview Academy, and that's just where you go and learn. It was an apologetics camp.
Humble brag.
Yeah,
World Academy. You may have heard of it.
Yeah.
Also referred to as Guantanamo Prey.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have summer camp stories? Did you do Christian summer camps?
I did. I have the funniest thing that's funny to me now is not funny to my parents is my parents were like convinced that summer camp would be the thing that would, whatever, crack me open for the Lord, or what, I don't know. It's because like it helped them, and they were super into camp. So I go off, and they're all into me being in camp, and I just would go off. And I remember like sitting there by the fire, everybody's crying, all these people are coming forward and the rededications, and I'm just sitting there. I was like, I'm not moving, dude. Like all these adults are pressuring me. It's like, I'm not doing it. But the funny part, that's the dark side of it, of just trying to pressure a kid into thinking that they're an evil pile of rags, like Apostle Paul tells us in the book of Romans. I'm in summer camp, and I go in there, and I'm like, my parents are probably like, just like, hope that Jason touches his heart or whatever. I go off to summer camp. We're hanging out, fucking around, having fun. We're telling these ghost stories in our cabin. It's on the edge of the woods. It's like my aunt has a haunted house that like the door moves and the gas can moves or whatever. And we're telling these innocent stories. Our camp counselor, who was like a Christian Bible college kids, he's like, you guys want to hear something like a real story, a scary story? And then me and a couple of friends are like, yeah. He's like, it's so scary that I can only tell a few people. Like we have to go outside. And so we take this out to the edge of the woods. This dude who's probably like 18 or 19, this college kid, and we're sitting there. And he's like, there's like 4 or 5 of us, and we're like little kids. And he gets down and he's like, have you guys ever heard of the Manson family? And he goes through bit by bit, dude, of the entire Manson story. And we're
fuck yeah.
Dude,
props to that kid. I thought you were going to take this somewhere else.
No, it blew our minds. And so you wait for it. My parents pick me up, and I jump into the car, and they're like, hey, how was camp? How was it? And I was like, Mom, Dad, have you guys ever heard of Charles Manson? I was totally amped up. And I was obsessed, like with like sent me, and they're just like, oh my God, like what is wrong with this kid? And so it lit me up in the wrong way, I think. I was like, that was what I took. My takeaway from summer camp was the Manson murders. So
we got to find
that's a good kid. Summer.
That's it. We need to find him next and ask him. I want to talk to him.
How are you so awesome?
How many kids did you tell about the Manson family? And also, why do you have so many bodies buried in your backyard now?
Totally age inappropriate.
Yeah. So in high school, you're still going to youth group, even though you're like, this is horseshit. Your parents know you don't care about it. I'm almost a little surprised you never what's sticking out to me here is that people want to call out your rebellion, but you're not putting your foot down saying you're not going. Like, to me, that's pretty like amicable. You're just like, yeah, that is what you want me to do. Like, I don't know if it was out of respect for your parents or just because it wasn't worth making the waves. What was going on there?
I don't think it was an option. I didn't think that going was not going was not an option.
Yeah.
Until I was out of the house.
It's so funny because I mean, my kids are almost 5 and 6, but then I also I have a foster son who I've been taking care of since he was 16. And I learned very quickly that you can't make people do things. It's really hard. And with the dynamic that we have, it's like, he's lived 16 years of his life in a situation where, he's doing his thing, whatever. And then whenever like the rubber would hit the road and we're like, this is what you have to do. It was like, he just wouldn't. And you're like, wait, I did everything I was supposed to as a kid. So this is like really a new thing for me to experience. Cause I'm like, but it's like, oh yeah, that's right. You actually can't make people do things. All they have to do is say no. I'm not picking up a 16-year-old and dragging him somewhere. And my brother was, he kind of started fizzling out on the stuff.
Older.
He's a year and a half older than me, but we really like, we came up as close as you can. I mean, being homeschooled helped, but he took a year off in between like going to college. So like him and I, our first year of college was at the same community college. Like we were very close. And he kind of started fizzling out on this stuff. And I was worried as shit. I was like, oh my God, this is awful. Like I was worried about his soul because I had the full buy-in. And he would go and do like, but you know, his way of like saying I'm not doing this would be like, he would go to church with the family, and then he would go sit he would leave the sanctuary and go hang out in like the fellowship hall and read a book. And sometimes it was even a kind of a Christian book. But it would just be like to do his own thing. Like, and so I anyway, I'm being a little long-winded, but I keep thinking about like agency and what you can and can't make people do. And all you have to do is say, I'm not going. And you just sit there, and no one's gonna like. You're not gonna be picked up, put in the car, buckled in, driven to church. So I guess that's what I find interesting is with your level of resistance to this, but still feeling like you had to go. It is interesting to me. I guess that's all. I guess I don't have a question there. That was just a statement. Anyway,
it sounds to me like you grew up in the 2000s.
Yeah.
You're born in 1974. You tell your dad something. It's like, no, dude.
Okay. You're making a solid case now.
You're doing whatever they tell you to do because that's what the fuck's going down.
Yeah. Whatever genetic daddy will spank you.
Dude. Yeah.
You weren't quite old enough to fight your dad.
Next question.
So Satanic Panic, like prime time. Do you remember any of the stories that they told you to like generate the fear? Because I know there's like a few that went around, but I'm curious, like what was the shock and awe, like listen to the testimony of this kid who listened to metal?
It was more like the shock and awe was probably Stairway to Heaven. My Sweet Satan played backwards. That was like the backwards masking thing. That was the big trip back then. It was My Sweet Satan. It was all like Robert Plant was evil. Humble brag, I did a poster for Robert Plant's concert, and it's like it's funny to kind of relate to my parents now, in those terms. I was like, Dad, I'm doing a thing for Robert Plant. He's like, is he a biggie? I was like, yeah, he's popular. Like didn't know who, just not on his radar, that's just kind of anyway. The shock and awe was like the dude coming in and being like showing us a slideshow. He started out a slideshow with the Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers album, which if you're not familiar is a still shot of an Andy Warhol film with this giant package, this man's cubit, if you will, very clearly outlined. And we're like little kids. He has a slide of an Andy Warhol film, the Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers album, and he flashes it up there, and I swear to God, he said, this is the Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers, and that in his pocket, that ain't a can of chaw. He said, like it's not chewing tobacco. It ain't a can of chaw, dude. It's like, what a fucking weird thing to tell a kid. It's like, that's his dick. It's like, okay. So that was a weird one. The Cyndi Lauper masturbating, that was interesting to learn that She-Bop is about masturbation.
Wait, I'm out of the loop on Cyndi Lauper outside of just knowing who
dude, Cyndi Lauper?
I mean, I know who she is, but I'm not
usual. She was a pop star when I was a kid, and she was like this real funky, wild woman. And she wrote a song called She-Bop, and it was this
She-Bop.
huge
Okay.
She-Bop, we bop a rebop, I bop, they bop a rebop. And if you go through the lyrics,
we had the Hanson version. Shooby-dop bop, doo-bop,
doo-bop. Did you guys grow up on Hanson?
Hanson was
we were Hanson adjacent.
Yeah, okay. It would have been like when I was I feel like 8, 9, maybe 9. No.
Okay. Let's
9, 10.
We'll come back. I have a Hanson story for you.
Okay, sweet. I can't wait to hear it.
But so it was just so Sydney. I can't even say the name. It's so disgusting. It says, I hope that he understands, and the he is capitalized and it's an arrow up. So this dude did a deep dive into the lyrics. And if you read it, it's about touching yourself. And it's just like, she was Catholic and she's like, I hope it's okay. It's some like guilt thing. It wasn't even anything. It wasn't racy or anything. So that was a big thing. But do you want to hear about Hanson?
Yeah, let's pivot straight into the Hanson story. I didn't know. Everyone when I was young was just like the youngest Hanson. Legitimately, before I knew who Hanson was, I think maybe I'd see a clip of him on the Disney Channel and stuff. I was like, oh, that girl's kind of cute. And then you're like, oh no,
No.
Growing up super Christian, you're like, I don't know what to make of this. I think my entire world's been flipped upside down. Another Will Smith reference. Here we go. Round 2.
Man.
We'll round out with a solid 3 before we close out. That's the goal now.
Well, that's the arrow, the target. So I ended up. This is like a fast forward quantum leap, but the band that I was in ended up like I was in and out of art school and stuff. And we'll jump forward. I got signed to Sony Records when I was like 1998, 1999. So our band got signed. We're going to New York, and our attorney at the time, this really great dude, he just got back from South by Southwest, and he's like, these little kids came up to me and started singing, and they're going to be huge. And I'm like, whatever. And he's like, they started singing for me. I asked for their parents. He's like, they're these little brothers, these Hanson brothers, going to be huge. Like, whatever, dude. We watched that shit. We go out to LA. We go to the Hanson headquarters. I'm like wearing like I have a Hanson shirt at one point. Ironically, of course, I'm not like really into them. But, so our attorney was signed Hanson basically, and we were signed to Sony 550, which was Ben Folds 5 was a big band back in those days. We toured with him and had the same management, and we would Sony Records. It was like a subsidiary of Columbia and Epic. And so we were like rocks, we were fucking going to New York, and we skipped some things, but
what was your band called?
It's called Old Pike, OLDPIKE. Not overly, didn't sell millions of records, clearly, but had fun.
That's awesome, man.
But that was like this kind of the beginning, that was my trajectory. I was in art school. How do you want to?
Let's go. So you're obviously in high school, not buying the youth group thing, not buying the church thing. Did you start getting into art in high school? Were you
yes,
outside of music?
Super into art. My mom's an artist and got me like I was helping her with murals. My mom and I are super close, and I'm very close to my parents. I don't want to give any, they're amazing. So I was working with her. We would do murals, and then I was in high school, and since it's just you guys listening, right, we're just a secret. Don't tell anybody. I had taken some LSD at one point in my life, and I went to school. Alleged LSD. And dude, I went in, and it was the day that they were doing airbrushes, and this guy put a chrome airbrush in my hand, and I pulled back the trigger, and color shot out of my hand onto the paper for real. And that's what an airbrush is. And so, dude, it lit me up. I airbrush all the time. This is an airbrush piece, like all the art in this place. So anyway, I got super into airbrushing, really into academic figure drawing. I ended up going to art school. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. I got some scholarship down there. And I was down there, I was drinking. Like I started partying super hard, like as a sophomore in high school. And so alcohol and, mainly drinking and stuff. But going down to Savannah, then my drinking was super intense. And it was like a blackout drunk and like waking up bleeding and shit, like fucked up shit. And so I wasn't there very long. And then I came back to Indiana, and then then I rejoined the band, and then that band turned into the band that got signed to Sony.
Okay. So did you go back to art school? That was the end of it, huh?
I got back into art school at IU in Bloomington, and was doing painting and drawing and very academic stuff, real rigorous, like draw 75 hands, like real traditional drawing stuff and painting. And then the band, we started going to New York, and then labels were taking an interest in us. We're hanging out in the Lower East Side in the 90s, dude. Like that scene, like Brownies, this nightclub, this little club called Brownies, and Lakeside Lounge, like these fucking like candlelit jukebox, beautiful like vinyl jukeboxes, candles, got turned on to cocaine, like street cocaine, like fucking in the 90s.
You cover all the bases, man.
Dirty shit, dude. Some gnarly shit. And that was spun me out, that led to it leads to some poor decision making. And my joke is that we used to call that stuff dummy dust, and I can't remember why.
Yeah.
But I want to say this too. There are some people that out there that may be listening that it's just like if something goes up your nose and it's just like doesn't stop going, I think that's not necessarily you as a bad person. I think it's just some people just don't have an off switch with stuff like that, and it's not personal. And that's kind of what it's just like, it's not, you have your genetics, you have your decisions, you have your bad decisions, but I have been off of that for it's like 20 years. Yeah, I'm not down with the hard drug vibe.
Yeah, no, I hear that, man. It's true. There's like it's a weird, it's a tough path for people. It's weird because I feel like there's people who do drugs and there's people who don't, and obviously there's a little bit of overlap. But like I'm like a fearful person, right? I've smoked weed. I've wanted to do shrooms for a while, but I haven't done them yet. Like, and that's kind of where it stops. But I didn't smoke weed until I was almost 30. And that's because I was like afraid of what might happen. And it's so, I didn't really drink much until I was older either, because it's like, I guess I was afraid of what would happen if you drink too much. And then with things like that, like you drink a little too much or you smoke weed for the first time and the next day you're just like, that was it. That's all that happened. But then there's like those people who just go 100 miles an hour, like, I'll try that. And it definitely seems like it has to be some genetics involved. It's personality type a little bit, but it's like the idea of like someone holding out their hand, open palm with a bunch of different colored pills in it. And you're just like, yeah, I'll take those. Let me try that one. It's like, and that's some people. And that would scare the fucking shit out of me. Mm-hmm. And that's, I don't know, maybe artists drift towards one and not the other. I'm not sure, but
it seems like that was just kind of a fixture of those scenes back then. Because I've listened to like so many comedians on podcasts talk about like their start in the 80s and 90s. And it was just, I mean, cocaine was just a part of it, for most of them. And a lot of them, it was a minor part that didn't last very long. But then there's some of them like, I don't know, Sam, have you ever heard Joey Diaz like talk about his...
Oh, yeah. That dude's a fucking monster.
Yeah, I mean, ended up kidnapping a dude.
Mega storm cluster before I get on the fucking airplane.
Yeah.
So you know Joey Diaz is.
I trip balls straight. I don't give a fuck about nothing. I do a fucking in the supermarket, baby.
Like a doctor.
Like a fucking boss.
Yes.
It's like hard to take him seriously as you hear him talk and you're like, am I listening to an actual human? Like, you have friends in actual real relationships. Nothing seems real about this.
I love that guy.
He's a freaking trip.
Like
that's like my experience with that stuff was like, it was limited and it was not sustainable and led me to, I got to a point where it was like, kind of ultimatums, and I took it to the extreme spot, and I was like, okay, this is no longer serving me, as they say.
Yeah.
Where did you like really like part ways with Christianity, and did it resurface like as you had good experiences or bad experiences later on? Did it resurface? Did your family try to kind of like guide you back in?
Are you saying how am I continually unmooring myself from Christianity? I think it's a lot. I don't. It's like, I still think about it and still contemplate it, and I feel like a few years ago I was like, I'm not, I'm not going to feel this instilled guilt that is put upon people through Christianity. And I made a conscious decision, and I did a specific thing for myself that helped me to clear that out and to be free of it. And I'm into Jungian psychology, Carl Jung, and so creating wholeness. It was more like that's a complicated question, because I would say that I left, I think in your origin story, Casey, it was sort of like you have all this stuff put into your head, and then you don't really, it's just sort of like you're going along and along, and I didn't really investigate it. I was fucking playing, I was wanting to tour. We would go hit the East Coast and we go down and we come out. I wanted to rock, I was like in my 20s. I didn't care about the theology. And then I was on a hike with my girlfriend and wife now, and it wasn't going to church or anything, but we were hiking, and I said, this is of all the fucked up stuff I've done, this is like the most embarrassing. Weeds come from Eve sinning. And I said that to my girlfriend, and she just kind of was looking at me like, and I was like, and as I said it, I was like, I don't think that's correct. And I was an adult. And I was like, I heard myself say it, and I was like, what? It's like, I just hadn't thought about it. And so that was kind of like, I was like, fucking, that's not why weeds are here. And that, like, the deconstruction process, I was never a Christian, but I still had I think I got like the guilt aspect of it, because evangelical, I don't know about you guys' family situations, but if you're an evangelical, man, Jesus is first before anything else, and that's what comes first.
Right behind Sean Hannity.
Well, that's a different era. Thank God.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, and now it's Tucker Carlson.
We had Pat Robertson. We had other horrible people, other horrible homophobic lunatics to complain about 700 Club and stuff.
He's still hanging on too, man. That guy won't quit.
He quit.
Did he?
Yeah, he quit like 2-3 months ago. He stepped down from the 700 Club and stuff, but he won't quit living, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, that's mostly what I mean. But he does. Doesn't he come back for guest appearances?
Probably.
Yeah,
he's a miserable old prick.
He'll never stop.
Yes.
He won't stop until the gays have been blamed for everything.
Dude, yes. Or the voodoo in Haiti that's causing all the floods. That was
yeah.
I kind of like, you guys are. It's like, it's so maddening to like tap into that scene. You guys are in it and like are observing it and critiquing it. I think it's awesome. I dip into it every once in a while. It's like, but I like the whole contemporary Christian. Like, I think what you guys grew up in church wise, I think is probably pretty different. Like I saw kind of your scene. It was more open. It was a little like, it was kind of mainstream. It was like you're going to a concert.
Yeah, you're right. They were able to I feel like they pulled a little bit more from certain aspects of mainstream culture and grafted it in, tried up the showmanship. It wasn't just like suit and ties, boring ass bullshit every Sunday. Like they tried to like make it a little bit more exciting. They added a fog machine, got some electric guitars. Like,
this isn't your dad's religion.
Yes. Yeah.
New.
And it did. It pulled a lot more. I think it pulled a lot more people in. It might have kept people more. It's weird. Like, so on my way home from work, even today, my aux cord went missing. I don't know. So I can't listen to my music in my car. And I'm like, I put on the Christian radio station because I wanted to see what the fuck is up in Christian music today. Every once in a while I do that for research purposes, of course. And I'm like, I was blown away by how bad it is.
Still not good.
It's I don't know if it's worse than it's ever been or if I just have been that far removed from it, but it's like what's weird about it is there's still that trickery going on, right? Where if drop it into verse 1 halfway through it, like you might think you fell on some on something else, because they're great. They have great voices. Like that's one of the things that really stood out to me. Maybe it's those have gotten better, but hearing some of the songs that would come on, I'm like, these people are like, they have incredible voices, very talented. And then it kind of like if you were skimming through the radio and you came across it, you'd be like, oh, what's this? And you'd stop and you're like, this sounds fine. Like, oh, had a bad day kind of shit. And then all of a sudden it's like, and Jesus can fix that for you. Jesus fixes mental health issues, and Jesus fixes, and you're like, okay, what the fuck? Like, it feels like such a reach, even more so now. I like just today listening to maybe 5 or 6 songs. Almost all of them were about like all the magic things that God can do to fix all your problems and make things perfect. And it's like, I feel like at least 10 years ago when I was really in it, it was like just praising God for the sake of, like, I don't know, being good. And then you could leave that up to your own
it's not
value judgments. And that's a shift that I thought was weird. But musically, it feels like they're always a few years behind society, but they're keeping up with the trends. And I don't know, man, it's such a weird world. And maybe I just look at it more negatively now that I'm looking at it from a different vantage point, but I think they're still using the same tactics to suck people in, the showmanship and the, I don't know.
Well, it's going to be appealing.
Music. Yeah.
Is that your gripe? It's not unappealing enough.
Yeah. Until you hear, like, if you were just passively, you could listen to it and not be overly bothered.
And also it could be about a woman or a man, or maybe it's about God. Like that was like the original band that I started playing in music. Like we'd try to write, this is like as a little kid in junior high. It's like, it's just like, it could be God or it could be about a girl. I think that was like the trick. That's your most coverage.
Yeah.
That's the sweet spot.
The Amy Grant and Peter Cetera duet. Guys, that might have been before your time.
I remember Amy Grant. I don't know Peter Cetera.
He was a singer in the band Chicago, and they did a duet together. And that was when she went secular. And and let me tell you, she took her shoes off in public.
Ended up on Wiki Feet?
Yeah. It was a horrible, horrible, disrespectful thing for the Lord. People lost their shit because she took her shoes off and was trying to go mainstream. And it was like, it's tribalism. Christianity to me is tribalism, and that's inherent in the human condition. And I could be an apologist for Christianity as well, which would be fun.
Yeah, right.
So,
I think that's a huge point that sometimes gets left out of these conversations, is like it's a brand of tribalism. And you see the same patterns play out in all of these other communities that people are invested in, and I don't know, that's how I look at it too. You talked about like making a conscious decision to not feel shame, and never feeling like you were really invested in it per se, but like still having to untangle it.
Yeah.
I think that is such a weird thing to think about, and hard to explain to people that weren't a part of it. Is like, just because you weren't, training to go to the mission field, it doesn't mean that it doesn't, like, maybe it's not a part of your belief structure, like these core Christian tenets, but it's still like, it's a part of your worldview, which is more subtle, but it's still like, it's there, and it's something that you don't always notice consciously, but just little ways that it pops up in your brain, or colors the way that you look at things.
Yeah.
It's tough to make a conscious shift on some of those ideas, even if in your brain that you really don't think that way. It's still there.
Yeah, I mean that to me, yoga and meditation for me is like understanding how you think. So basically, I practice secular Buddhism. So we talk about like religions or like excitement and smoke machines and stuff. My religion is like the most boring thing possible, because like you just sit still. Like you sit still in Zen, you count to 21, you just follow your breath up to 21, back down, up and down, and you're sitting still, and you sit so still that you just you're like, oh, this is what my brain does. This is what it does. and you just become aware with how it interacts with itself and how it responds to different situations. And it's like, oh, that's from this. So you're just observing. But this is a secular form of Buddhism where you're just observing your own thinking brain. That's the essence of it. And then consciously cultivating compassion for yourself. And so there's not an external deity. There's an innate goodness. So the main difference, can you tell my dad is a preacher? So the main difference, guys, the fundamental difference to me between Christianity and Buddhism is that Christianity says you're evil, a pile of rags without Jesus. You're inherently sinful. Buddhism says your basic nature is good. And when I heard that message, I was like, that makes more sense. And you have poison in your mind. You have ignorance, greed, and aversion. These are poisons of the mind that affect us. And there's the Four Noble Truths, and there's an Eightfold Path. There's this, there's a structure to it, but the like reincarnation and all that, it's like, who cares? Like that, the esoteric aspects don't appeal to me. But understanding, it's like when I sit still long enough, started this is how I freed myself from some of the past addictions and whatever. You start to see how your brain works, and it's like, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm like, I'm doing this thing again, or like that's from my mom, or like my that's from Gary. Like, what the fuck? That's not my brain. And so it's working with that in a compassionate context. That's basically my spiritual practice, is burning it out through yoga and just shredding and becoming aware, just present in this moment. I mean, that's all we have, of course. And that's what my interpretation, like I've re-investigated the teachings of Christ and have like a totally different perspective on Jesus, and feel in tune with what he's talking about on some levels, on many levels. And I don't think what he's talking about, what Jesus was talking about and what they told me he was talking about are two different things. That's my conclusion. And there's a lot of stuff about Jesus that's outside of evangelicalism, that's like living Buddha, living Christ. Thich Nhat Hanh's a Buddhist monk that wrote these parallels to Christ and Buddhist teachings. And I'm like going off on Christianity right now. My agenda or whatever is like looking at things and what we share in common, of like, we have this commonality, this Joseph Campbell concept of we all have these different pathways. And if we see what we share in common, then that's reality. And like the divisiveness is not, but it's fun. It's fun to go down to junior high and shred lunatics.
You have to, for your own sanity. You have to make fun of some of the bullshit. It's like, I mean, that's why we like what we're doing here, is like,
totally,
is to rag on some of it without, it's not necessarily ill intentioned, but I hear what you're saying, man. I really like it, because I think you're right. I think what you're talking about when it comes to the teachings of Jesus and how they don't necessarily line up with the modern iteration, the evangelicalism, they don't. And I think there are a lot of parallels. So whoever it is, like what you've read that's trying to maybe compare them and find some similarities, I think is neat, because so much of what I think Jesus was talking about was getting out of your own way and tearing down walls and opening the floodgates for everyone to find that peace. And I think so. I love it, man. I'm definitely here for that. I hear what you're saying, and I'm on board.
It's beautiful stuff. It's been, I mean, if like, that's my apologist side. If somebody comes at me like and puts me in a corner, like, why do you not accept, like, why are you not, whatever, like aggressively, I mean, it's happened to me a lot where people have like aggressively wanted me to become a Christian. And then I would just say, I mean, if that were to happen, I would just say, well, do you know what language Jesus spoke? It's like, you're basing your life off of around this dude. It's like, he spoke Aramaic. It was written down in Greek. It was written down 80 years after it happened. I mean, if somebody wants to fucking argue this shit, I'll go all day. I love it. Like theology, you want to like have some debate or something. And if the debate is how did the human eye come into existence, it's like, fuck, you're too fucking
irreducible complexity, man.
Dude, I can't even, if we don't have a basis Like, I'm not having that argument. And in those arguments,
how could you have a watch without a watchmaker?
Yes. What all birds have two wings? It's like, dude, you're that dumb, man. I can't.
If you put a bunch of watch parts in a bag and shook it for 1 billion years, would you ever get a watch?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's the Josh McDowell shit, right? Isn't it?
It's kind of sad. It's like, it's such a reach for people. It's such intellectual. I mean, you have to just stomp on your brain to come to those conclusions in some of those situations. And it's like, man, that's like some form of oppression of just being like, do not learn anything, do not understand reality, or whatever how you interpret reality. I mean, I have, you were mentioning like some woo-woo things. I would say that I have beachfront property, perhaps in woo-woo island. So, we can go woo-woo town. I've been to woo-wooville.
Got a few beaded curtains in your house.
Yeah. Yes, you can smell the incense over here. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that comes with being an art. I do want to talk about your pathway into I'm blown away by your artwork, man. I think it's absolutely incredible. Your mural work is what first captivated me. Maybe you could give an address for people who are in Chicago or in that area, but like that octopus piece that's kind of like looks like it's coming out the windows and shit.
Yeah.
It's that's the first thing I saw.
Cool. Thank you.
It was just like, oh my God, I loved it. And
you can see that at jasonbrammer.com.
Yeah. We'll link to it too, man, for sure. But I just your pathway into art. I think that's not an easy world to be successful in. To be a career artist is something that most artists are struggling to be able to find. So I think that's incredible. I think you totally deserve it, given everything I've seen. What I feel like, I'm not an artist. I don't know how to explain art or talk about it in a way that sounds like I know that sounds intelligent, but even just looking at your work, I'm like that a lot of it looks very different. Like I wouldn't look at that and say the same artist made that. And I think a lot of artists might fall into maybe those trappings of like, oh, that looks like so-and-so, or if you're, they do stuff in a similar style all the time. And as I go through your artwork, if you held the two up together, I would never assume that the same artist made them. And I think that that's what I found particularly engaging about your work. It was just like, holy shit, it's taking me all different places. I'm looking at it in different ways, and it seems like it's maybe in different styles, but I don't know. So how did you start pursuing? You got out of music and went back to art, and you kind of pursued that path, and how did you get to where you are?
Our band broke up. We made a record with Jim Scott, who worked with Tom Petty and Wilco and stuff. And so we made like a real record, and the band broke up. Shout out to Eric Hopper, our drummer. He's in Seattle now. Does a bunch of cool stuff. And Carl Brammer, our guitar player, is now playing guitar for My Morning Jacket. And so we kind of all disbanded, did our own things. And I got into art. I moved to Chicago, and I had this studio like a place in the Ukrainian village. And I was just working. I was doing a lot of residential murals. I started getting an art studio, and I was like, what? It's like $300 a month in this basement unit. I lived upstairs. I thought I can make $300 a month on paintings. And so I just started doing restaurant shows. My wife had a corporate gig, and she quit her job and started managing me full time.
Oh, wow.
So that's like the real reason.
That's amazing.
The truth is that my wife like runs everything, and I'm an idiot, and I'm not totally sure what day it is. But what was I saying on this Sunday afternoon? No, I just started working real hard and getting gigs and doing shows, and then getting into the gallery scene and building collectors. And we did these street festival art shows, and those collectors, you just build a relationship with them. They keep buying your work. And I work with this company called Dark Matter Coffee, which is this awesome brand in Chicago. And I do all their shops, and I'm just getting ready to do a ton of stuff for them. got some gigs working with the Smashing Pumpkins, which was really awesome. Like growing up grew up on Smashing Pumpkins, Gish, you know, and Simon's Dream, of course.
I used to hide your album.
Yeah.
Dude, I think I was yes, I did tell Jimmy that. I was like, those guys were cut out. I had a Smashing Pumpkins thing cut out on my drawing board as a kid, and like me and the Smashing Pumpkins and stuff. So I was super into it. And so working with him was, you know, it's a dream. You know, it's like I painted 3 drum kits for him. And,
oh wow, that's awesing. You showed me the one. You didn't know I didn't realize you've done 3 at this point. That's really cool.
Our secret. They're not released yet, but this is really funny. I told Jimmy this. I was like, dude, I saw you guys play on the tour. It was Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, and I was going to that show because those are my 3 favorite bands at the time. And my dad's like, you are not going to this show. And so I was like, okay. And you're talking back to like making people agree with something. I went to the Clues Hall, called him up from the payphone. He's like, where are you? Like, I'm at the show. I'll see you when I get home. Like, all right, I'll see you when I get home. And I was like, but to this day, and now it's like, I don't have the heart to tell him that. It's like, you remember that, like, not letting me go? Like, he's so proud of, he's like, you're working for the Smashing Pumpkins. It's so awesome. And it's like, yeah, it wasn't awesome 30 years ago. It's awesome now. So people change, man. People change, attitudes and spiritualities and rigidities soften sometimes.
Yeah.
How did I become an artist? Started painting.
Yeah.
Paint, man. Just paint. And then paint your way out of stuff. I was in my old studio. I was like, I need to paint my way out of here. Just psychologically. Like paint, like get good enough to where I can not be painting in this place anymore.
It sounds like half the battle is like, on one hand, you just have to be good enough. On the other hand, you have to be able to sell your stuff and manage it. And that sounds like where your wife came in, is to be able to like take care of that aspect of things and have that partnership going where it's like you can focus your attentions on the art and you don't have to worry about like trying to sell it to some
writing an invoice.
Random person.
Just all the computer stuff. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, to me, like my thing is that making the art's the easy part. Like I get gigs with companies and I did LinkedIn, did like their hallways and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
That's sick, man.
It's just like the painting is easy. That's like the easiest part. The set, like I had a meeting this morning at this Ravenswood restaurant this morning. Got up, was like, yeah, we're coordinating everything. I mean, it's like actually doing the work. That's the dream. It's cake. So it's a pain, dude. Like, I mean, it's really challenging and very difficult if you're, I mean, it's a bohemian lifestyle. It's like you value your freedom over anything else. And you're not, Alan Watts says that a bohemian is somebody that values freedom over money, and they don't feel like they don't have to conform to the social mores of the time. So whatever that means, you know, it's like you can do your own thing. To me, that's how
yeah.
One thing I notice a lot, like in all sorts of different communities, is there's like a degree of resentment that comes with success, like especially in something that's I guess like it might be glamorized in some ways by people who want to do it or wish they could do it or whatever. I mean, there's 2 very different things there, right? That you're talking about. Like there's the art side, which has got to be there. There's also the business management side, which is a whole nother skill set. You need the 2 in order to survive as an independent artist. Have you like encountered that resentment from other artists or things over the years?
Somebody called me up one time. An artist called me, and they were just saying like they were kind of like, what are you doing? Or they were giving me some slack on something, and it's just like, all right, man. I don't know. Not really. I don't like the idea. I mean, for me, like my agenda is like, what you think of me is none of my business. And like really like feeling that thing, just being like, man, people can, it's like, fuck them, you know? If an artist is like bitching about me doing something, I don't know. I think that says more about them than me. You know, I think that successful people are supportive of people, and I don't know. I don't know if I have any. I don't think I'm super famous enough to have like no.
People that critique your brush strokes.
Dude, I think I'm below the radar on many levels.
That's when you'll know you've made it, is when some billionaire is like talking about your brush strokes like they know shit.
Right. I'll take it.
Well, when Elon Musk buys one of your paintings and hangs it on his rocket deck into space, you'll be famous.
Right. There's you guys know the Electric Forest Festival?
No, I feel like I've heard of it.
If your youth group made that trip or not, it's a psychedelic. It's like this massive 50,000 person psychedelic festival in the woods in Michigan, and I'm currently working on designing the entry gate portal to it, and it's
nice.
It's going to be like probably 35 feet by 40 feet, and so I'm designing the entry point. It's Sylvan Esso's headlining on Friday, and it's like a lot of EDM stuff. And
that's awesome.
This is like a Juggalo thing.
You know, it's like there'll be a lot of furry boots. I don't know. It's like, I would call it a rave, but I'm old. It's just a
furry boots, the bangles of all different shades.
Lots of colorful people.
That's
awesome,
like
man.
A blast.
I'm just always amazed. My grandfather was a really talented artist, and I just was always amazed by that. Just being able to see something that someone thought in their head and just was able to put to whatever form that they choose. I don't know, maybe paint, paper, sculpting. I love it, and it blows my mind because I don't feel like I don't think I have an artistic bone in my body. So like stick figures are a struggle. So whenever people are really killing it, I love it. It just, like I said, it blows my mind.
Well, this is a form of creativity. You're drawing out weird stories from me. That's like that's an aspect of creativity.
Well, you know, all glory to him. That's what I want to say.
Oh, glory. There's no the lingo.
All I know is that we now have to live in fear. You make the wrong joke and Will Smith come out of nowhere and smack you right in the face. So it's
there. You got your third one in.
It was a stretch. It was a stretch, but I wasn't going to close this out without it. God would have been sad, and I don't like to disappoint my Lord and Savior. So
indeed.
Well, Jason, it's been great hearing from you, man. I'm glad we got to meet you and hear your story.
Yeah.
If you guys are in Chicago or want to come to Chicago, hit me up.
Yeah, definitely. I want to go now just to see your work and hang out with you, man. I now have a reason to actually make it to Chicago. Other than I hear it's cool. I don't know. I don't know much about Chicago.
Fun place.
I might run into Chance the Rapper, so that'd be dope. But
come on up. I'll show you my scene. We got a little scene going on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
So jasonbrammer.com is where people can find your work and reach out and stuff. Do you have social media?
Social media is Jason Brammer. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. That's about it. Cool. Again, you guys TikTok?
No, but we do feel guilty that we're not.
I've heard that's what people are doing. So.
It seems to be where some people are blowing up. I just have a really hard time looking at a camera and saying shit like this. Easy, whatever. It's because I'm not expecting. We're not putting the video out generally, but I'm also not. TikTok's weird. It's like you have 15 seconds to say something that's going to interest somebody, and that's when I feel like I freeze. Conversations, great. Looking at a camera with nobody in the room,
right?
It's like weird as fuck. I hate it.
Reels, man. That's my wife does a lot of social media stuff, and Reels on Instagram is actually like doing pretty well right now, I think.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and this is like, it would be really fun to, I would, like when you come to Chicago, we won't record it. I just like talking about religion and all that stuff. And most people in my life are not interested in hearing that. I've learned that, man, like being a fundamentalist, it's like, or whatever, it's like, dude, just whatever, chill. Yeah. I appreciate it that you all understand those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Thanks so much again for hanging out with us. It was great talking to you.
Yes, you as well. All right, guys, take care.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.